I was having a conversation with somebody last night, and because, like I say, that I think long term for NWRC, I think that train journey probably saved us about 3 or 4 years worth of work, because we literally just sat there and just pumped in for the information. What do you do? And if that doesn't work, what do you do with this? And what do you do? And how do you grow this? And it was just some real basic kind of sort of, I mean, some of the stuff is very sort of simple, but fundamental principles, the stuff about recovery being an organic experience, about it not being something that we can commission through treatment services, about how the genuine and what it all should have been about, and what he was pushing at that point was building this bridge between treatment services and mutual aid. And treatment services, instead of trying to be all things to all people, just concentrate on the shit we can do, which is acting as a set of stabilisers, getting people clean, getting them sober, offering them counselling, giving them detox. And then once they're clean, once they're sober, once they're detox, give them to people in recovery who will then.
And I think you and I have stuck by that for a long time. I often rephrase it to people in that expression. Well, treatment services are for the part of the deal where people get off drugs, and that's where they stop. And the hard work of staying off drugs happens in the community with the peers. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, but this is the. I don't even the frustrating or just or the crazy thing about it. The medical models still don't get that. They still don't understand the part of the puzzle. And I think a lot of that, whether it's just tied into ego or whether it's this or whatever it can be. But I mean, we've known this stuff. Mark Twain said it. I mean, he's been dead 100 years. Giving up smoking's easy. I've done it 1,000 times. You know what I mean? It's not rocket science, this sort of stuff. But again, I think that's the thing, that's the bit I think that we come back to, why again we're the only outlier up north, because everybody else has tried to commission it. Nobody else has ever really appreciated that concept that recovery is an organic. You don't get me wrong, it's the same as any sort of type of gardening. I don't know if it's the right analogy, this, but you can create the right environment that will foster it, the right conditions that do it and support it, but it has to be done organically. You can't fast forward that. You know, and again, I just don't think that that's ever been a concept that's been grasped. And because again, with all our treatment service stuff, it's all about immediate effects and this year's budget and what are we going to see the results for this money that's spent here. If you're spending money on establishing a brand new recovery community, you probably won't get any benefits for. It's like growing artichokes. You won't get any benefits till season 2, season 3. Do you know what I mean? But then once you've got it, it just goes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and wider. So preaching to converted.
I want to switch us on to, you've really built nicely up to the fact that actually you've suddenly realised the need for this recovery community. And I don't want us to talk about it on film, but it's important that you and I just acknowledge in the interview, I suspect we'll cut it somewhere, but that obviously there was a moment that catapulted this for you. So you'd been thinking about this stuff all the time and doing this stuff. And then, you know, for want of a better expression, you know, a situation in which I then got involved in supporting you, but it went completely Pete Tong in your organisation. And in a way that hastened your decision to, shit, I'm going to get on with this myself now. Yes.
Yeah, I think, again, I was just reflecting on this before we did the meeting, but at that point, I was actually, I was leaving the field. I was going to go back to Sheffield. I was just that disillusioned. I mean, the whole kind of thing that the final tipping point was having to blow the whistle. But I think I became really disenfranchised early on. I think that one of the very early conversations that I had with Pete, probably about 12 months into it, obviously as my line manager, and just having a massive sense of frustration and like anger, and just being like, how can the system be this fucked up? How can it be this dysfunctional? How can we throw this much money at something that doesn't work? That just, when you talk, like I said before, about how you can create and foster the right environment for recovery, you can create and foster the right environment for recidivism, for rampant addiction, this whole stuff. We've done this with this whole massive behemoth of a treatment, and it's just so completely, and like I say, it just doesn't work. And I was raging about it, and I just remember Pete sitting there. He said, I remember somebody said to me once, you have to consider sometimes the concept, is this deliberately self-sabotaging? Is it deliberately dysfunctional? I said, how do you mean? He said, well, you look at this. He said, if we took an adult approach to this and kind of stopped viewing this as a criminal justice issue and actually viewed it as a social justice issue and decriminalised all these people that we have done, what would happen to these hundreds of thousands of prison officers, probation officers, police officers, all these people that make money out of addiction? Do you know what I mean? And I went, oh God, I never thought about it from that point of view. And like I say, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's the case by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, I think it's the case by quite a long stretch anyway, but go on.
Yeah, well, at this point, I would say I think that's exactly the case. However, this is my own views. I'm not representative of NWRC in any way, shape or form. But yeah, just like, so again, because it was, and this was a frustrating kind of thing for me, it still is in terms of recovery. Treatment services don't do recovery. So basically, 90% of all the money just gets chucked at frontline services. So for people that are still actively drinking, still actively using, there's nothing in place that supports individuals to get well. We used to discharge people in service once they achieve abstinence. Are we doing that because that supports that individual? We're just doing that because that records an outcome, and then we see them coming back through the door again in 6 months. I've been doing this job for 15 years, and one of the recurring themes for the Welsh Government is about this revolving door of people coming through treatment services. So we speak to our guys, some of them been detoxed 12, 15 times. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, like I say, you can argue the case with that for alcohol. Oh, okay, yeah, you can argue the case for that all day long. Keeps people well, keeps them alive. But particularly for opiate users and stuff like that, we're putting these guys at risk of death. Do you know what I mean? All we're doing is we're just massively increasing the risk of overdose for them because we're just chucking a detox at them and not offering anything else that would help them to sustain, or even to ask them to ask the question, do you want to stay clean afterwards? Do you know what I mean?